It has been 12 years since the end of probably one of my favorite shows of all time, which was The Office. And in that 12-year span, we have gotten so many different shows, so many different comedies that are in TV format. And I personally believe that none of them have lived up to the standard of The Office. Now, obviously, we have been waiting for such a long time for something to come along that has some promising nature. But I am happy to report that the spin-off to The Office, The Paper, is looking to be a promising start in that journey to something incredible. Now, before I continue, I want to be very clear about something. At least two things. One, I will be covering some spoilery-esque things. So if you are the type of person who does not want to know anything whatsoever that has to do with The Paper, just wanted to let you know I will be saying some spoilery things that may affect the way you view the video, the show, or your enjoyment. So just wanted to get that out there. And the second thing that I wanted to let you guys know is that typically for videos that I do here, I am very critical and I do give some leeway as to what I like and what I don't like of a project. I try to just talk about all the best things of the project as much as possible. But when it comes down to something like this, which is a spin-off of a show that I absolutely love, I just wanted to put out a quick disclaimer that I will be more critical of this show than I would have in other circumstances, because being such a big fan of the original show and seeing the spin-off, it's necessary to say what I have to say, because I do want the show to succeed so that I can continue to enjoy it from time to time, just like I do the original Office. So I have to say, for a first season of a show that is simply just trying to bring audiences over from an original show into a spin-off, for first season, I feel like it did a pretty solid job. I feel like it gave us a good foundation to work on top of. And, not a lot of shows can say that. Not a lot of shows have that opportunity to say, like, okay, we had a good solid first season. Now let's expand and grow and make sure that these characters, flourish. I am happy to see that they actually created a good foundation. I'm not going to say it's great. I will touch upon the things that I didn't quite like of this show and what I think it needs to improve later. But just for the overall feeling, I think it did a pretty okay job of setting us up for success. So let's talk about the cast of this show, and at least in this first part, the cast that I actually liked and enjoyed seeing on this show. And let's start off with Domhnall Gleeson. I think he is doing a great job on this show because we know him so well as a character, or an actor at least, who does characters in a very straight way. And I mean, you don't typically see him doing comedy, so to see him in a comedy is really cool and really fun, and I love what they're doing with him here on this show. They're allowing him to be silly, they're allowing him to explore areas of Ned and his character. There are a couple of moments here and there where you see, parts of his character shift from one thing to another, and ultimately that shift kind of sees how much shaky ground he's on as a character. And I think Domhnall does that brilliantly well. I do have to say that there are moments where you do see some Michael Scott-isms in him, but he is not Michael Scott in any way. Like, Michael Scott is a completely different character than this, but I think that he does a really great job. Domhnall does a great job of actually setting us up with a character that actually does really well on this show and actually feels like some form of a character that would exist in an Office universe. So I think he's doing a great job. Chelsea Frey as Mare, I think, is a really great choice. I think that she I mean, I was discussing this with my dad. He says that the dynamic between Ned and, Mare is very similar to like Jim and Pam. I know that that's kind of where they want to go with it, but I like to see that relationship in a different pattern, in a different way. And I like to see it as a relationship between like Jim from season 1 and 2, which would be Mare, versus Jim from like seasons 6 through 9-ish. Like, that's kind of like the relationship I see there. I understand that they wanted to go with a Pam-like character, but I feel like Mare brings such a level of softness to the show, and she's also kind of tough too. So I mean, there's no like real box that you can put her in. I think that she's a character that is going to be either really soft in one area or she's going to be really tough in another area. And I feel like they set her background up in such a way that you're like, okay, I understand now. She's like an ex-military person, she's, going about, working at this newspaper. So I feel like that connection is really good. And I feel like Donald Gleason and Chelsea Frey actually do a really good job of like conversing with one another. They have a really good chemistry on screen. And that chemistry is sometimes the most necessary thing in order to push a show forward. So that connection in and of itself is fantastic. And I feel like she does a great job portraying Mare. And honestly, I feel like she's one of the more promising characters outside of Ned on this show. And I would say like the two strongest characters being Mare and Ned are like fantastic, and that connection is perfect. So I can't wait to see them in season 2, flourish as they are, not only as two people, but seeing Mare grow and see Chelsea Frey take that character in new directions. Ramona Young as Nicole. As we were watching the show, my dad was talking about this character, seeing Nicole as sort of like Kelly Kapoor. I don't know. Kelly Kapoor was more bubbly, more energetic, and she was kind of, trying to be like a preppy type girl. In this case, it's a different story. I think Nicole is a really smart character. She really does stand her own. She's very witty as well, which I think is great. And honestly, it's a character that we get so little of on the show that I wish we could get more of her. And I do see that being the case going forward. If we put Mare and Ned on top, Nicole would probably be secondary in this sense in terms of screen time and, us getting to know more of her as a character. I think she does great. I think Ramona Young does a great job bringing this character to life and, being that sort of low energy kind of character that okay, yeah, sure, whatever. And I feel like in a way, now that I'm thinking of it, she's kind of Toby-esque in her energy at times. So it's kind of trying to play around with different aspects of characters that we've seen before. But I definitely want to see more of Ramona Young and Nicole as a character on screen more, because I feel like there's a lot more that you could do with her as a character. So yeah, I'm really excited to see her in season 2. Melvin Gregg as Detrick. Now, we get very small moments with Melvin here as Detrick. I think this is a character that ultimately is going to see more screen time in season 2, but I think that this is definitely one of those characters that I would put even below Nicole as a character. But I think that he's definitely going to have more screen time, and we're going to see more of him on screen. But from the little that we do get of him, he does a great job, and I can't wait to see what direction Melvin takes Detrick in the next season. Alex Edelman as Adam. I never knew that we needed another Kevin-like character, and now we do. And that's Adam. Adam is our Kevin-esque character, with that very kind of warm feeling, but also kind of dopey and gullible type character. So it's really cool to see that type of character come back. Now, we still don't get a whole lot of screen time with him in it. He's more of a fourth tier type character, third or fourth tier type character, which doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, but we get like bits and pieces of who he is overall. But I definitely want to see more of him in season 2, and I hope that they actually do some more stuff with him. Bemisola Ikamelo as Adalola. We get an episode with her in the show, within, the 10 episodes that we get. We do get her there, in like 1 or 2 episodes. But again, she's also considered a sort of like third or fourth tier character on the show, which doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, but definitely a character that we'll definitely see more of on the show. I think that she is really funny as well. She has a moment here and there that I actually had some fun with, but definitely a character that we need to see more of. So there's not a whole lot I can say about her character, but I did have a lot of fun seeing her on this show. Eric Rahil as Travis. He is kind of like our Dwight-esque character, but I feel like, again, very little screen time, not a whole lot of time that we see him on screen, and he pops in here and there on the show, but definitely a character that we should see more of going forward. But yeah, kind of like Dwight, but he kind of does his own thing. So that's the thing. Like, I can't 100% say if he's a bad character or just a character that's kind of like Dwight. We'll see. We still have yet to see more of Travis in season 2. But then again, little time on screen, so there's not a whole lot that I can say. But as it stands, Eric Rahil did a great job portraying this character. Obviously, to no surprise, Oscar Nunez. I am elated to see him on screen again as this character. He is one of the best surprises of this show. Definitely from the beginning of the show all the way till the end, he definitely develops a certain relationship with the audience, which is different than other characters. While other characters are just telling you what's going on about their day, he's kind of trying to like create a connection with the audience as a whole, because ultimately he's been there. He's been there for over 20 years. He's been there since the very beginning. So it's important to have that sort of connection, and that, connection not only with the audience, but also with one show to the other. Him being the one character that came over from The Office and is now doing this here. I think it's great. I mean, I just wish there was more scenes with Oscar, but definitely it is great to see an old friend. He's kind of like an old friend that you love to see, come back and actually be a part of this. And I'm hoping that they actually would have covered more. I was hoping that they would cover more of his relationship, after The Office, like after The Office ended. I wanted to know a little bit more about what happened after that. Like, did he get married? Was he, is he still in his relationship? Is there more to him that we don't know about that happened after The Office? I wanted to see more of him on screen. I think that would have been great. But then again, it's so good to see him back. It's so good to see Oscar back again. It's honestly it was a great surprise, and I'm so glad that he came back. Alan Havey as Mr. Putnam. I think you have to have a character sort of like a David Wallace character, but I feel like this show is trying to be more warm and not try to make a corporation out to be like this big enemy. But I feel like having him here really solidifies the heart of what this company is doing, what the truth tellers are doing. And he's just great. Alan Havey just does a great job of portraying this character that is essentially a boss trying to keep his job and the job of others afloat, and be like a great boss and kind and considerate, which is like so out there for certain jobs. I mean, it's so good to see a character that you just absolutely love to see on screen. Like whenever he's on screen, you just know he's gonna have something nice to say. So I mean, obviously, like if we were to rate all the characters of the best ones, he'd probably be on top as probably the nicest character on this show, and truly just a delight to see whenever he pops up on screen. And to wind down the characters that I have been talking about, Dwayne Shepard as Barry. And Barry is a cross between, I would say, if you could cross Stanley with something like Kevin, I think that's the best way to describe Barry. Barry is kind of aloof, like 90% of the time. He's just kind of like out there and like not really thinking about what's going on, and he's just there doing his own thing, and he doesn't care. And then you see him falling asleep. He's that sort of Stanley-esque character, but he also has that sort of Kevin side to him, which I think was really interesting to kind of meld two characters together that are a bit aloof. But he is just absolutely great to see on screen, and I just absolutely love it. Now, in terms of the aspects that I actually enjoyed about the show, I think the intro of the show, meaning the very first episode, the pilot, is actually quite good and solid, and kind of, you know, introduces you to the characters and gives you some context as to who they are. I think that showing and starting off the show addressing Dunder Mifflin, you know, saying like, hey, you know, 12 years ago we had, you know, people who we were, you know, documenting, and they worked at this paper company, and they show, you know, Dunder Mifflin, the building, you know, at least Scranton Business Park, and, you know, just going into the building and going and actually talking to Bob Vance and seeing that Bob Vance is the only noticeable company that is still there. And then going inside the office building, you know, the actual office where the office was, you know, where Dunder Mifflin was, and seeing that now it's just like a laser removal, you know, office. It is so bittersweet. It is so hard to see that and just like think that like that place was the place where all these great moments happened, and to see that now it's like, oh, it's taken apart and there's nothing there. It was a very bittersweet moment. I'll say that it's something that, like, as soon as you see it, it just like it kind of breaks your heart a bit. But then again, without the people there, it's not the office. It's just, you know, office space. Without the people who actually made the magic happen in that space, it's just an ordinary office space. It's the people that actually made it special and entertaining. And I feel like covering that in the beginning of the show, covering it as it's supposed to, being a direct connection to the office, I think was, you know, great. Absolutely great. And it was a genius move that they approached it in that manner. And honestly, like, it shows respect not only for the viewer, but for the fans of this incredible franchise that has become The Office. And I think the little things as well really touch home here. I love seeing whenever they cut into like old footage, like black and white video of, you know, this newspaper being created, you know, actually going down to, you know, the basement of the building and actually seeing the machine that is being referenced as they're talking about the machine. I think that was a really good touch. And then obviously the little cut-ins, the black screens with the white text saying like, oh, yeah, we allowed that to happen. No, he wasn't supposed to be doing this. Like, the little explanations, great. I feel like it's a way of the editors to be talking to the audience in a way. It's a way of communication at least, that the editing does that allows the people who are watching to actually understand what's going on and actually get a good laugh out of it. And a little tiny touch that I think was great to add to this show was actually giving us tiny little after credit sequences. Right after the credits roll, they have little after credit sequences. Absolutely love that. probably one of the best little things that I can say about this show were the little additional after credit sequences that they added to each episode that just made like a nice little extra content for the person who's watching. Great little touch. Please keep doing that because I just absolutely love that. Now that I've covered all the good things that I enjoyed about the show, I have to start getting very critical of this show. Like I said before, all these great things, you can have all these great actors and have these great little moments, but you also have to address what's not working. What is not working for this show? So let's start off with Tim Key. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, forget the actor. He's a great actor. Tim Key is a great actor. He plays this role as Ken to the best of his ability, and he does a great job. The problem is that this character is far too annoying and kind of drags down the pacing of the show. Again, that doesn't mean I want them to disappear with Ken. I don't want them to disappear with Ken. I want them to actually do good writing for that character so that he is actually entertaining. Now, I get it. I know what they're trying to do here. They're trying to pay homage to the original Michael Scott himself, David Brent. Yeah, the original one from the UK version of The Office. So it's a great idea. I understand where the idea is coming from, but I just feel like it would be better if they actually wrote good stuff for that character, because that character is just dragging down the story and is not adding anything to entice me to watch more of the show whenever he's involved in something. It just feels cartoony and honestly, in my opinion, a little bit lazy. Creating a character like that and not giving him a greater purpose. So, again, a character that's just not working for me. Ken is just not working for me as a character at all. Another thing that is bothering me, another character that's bothering me a lot is Esmeralda. Again, same situation as Tim Key. Sabrina Impacciatore, great as an actress. She's great. She's bubbly. Her personality plays through. She's great as a character. On this show, however, it's just not working. It just doesn't work for me. I feel like she's too flamboyant. And as a matter of fact, now that I think of it, she kind of reminds me of Nellie. If you remember Nellie from season 8 and 9, she kind of reminds me of Nellie. Nellie didn't quite work in The Office. I get it that they wanted to add a British character to seasons 8 and 9 of The Office, but Nellie just didn't add a whole lot to the show with her addition, and she was kind of the annoying character in those seasons. So I think that it happens again with Esmeralda. I feel like she is a combination of all the worst things that Michael Scott has, and they put it into one character. Like, that's the best way to describe it, because there's no other way to describe this character other than that. Now, here's the thing. I don't think that she needs to go away. I just think that they need to write, just like I said for Ken as a character, they need to write something for Esmeralda to become a fan favorite. Now, I know a lot of people love Esmeralda as she is right now, but I feel like that character is kind of tanking the show in a way. Not entirely, but she is kind of tanking the show, and I don't want that to be the case. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that they actually take Esmeralda, write her a different way, a different approach, or in a different light, so that people can start to like that character. Because I like Sabrina as an actress, so I think that they could do a little bit more to expand that character somehow, and make her a lovable character that people want to go and watch the show for. But yeah, definitely needs a gigantic fix on that character, and hopefully they do it for season 2. Now, part of those grievances that I have with those characters, like I said, was the writing. So I feel like the best approach that they could take here to actually push this forward would have to be bringing back some of the OG writers of this show. You know, let's bring back some of the OG writers. You know, BJ Novak, Mindy Kaling, Michael Schur, the legend himself. You know, and if there are more that I'm not thinking of, bring them back as well. We need some of the classic writers to come and write for these characters to actually work within the Office formula. I feel like you created a foundation in the first season that you can now adapt to fit what people love about The Office in a second season. And hopefully the writers actually do a great job of bringing, you know, great quality writing to this show. I hope those writers actually bring their A game to the next season, because I really want that to be the case. Another thing that kind of breaks the show, for me at least, is the constant breaking of the fourth wall. The constant breaking of the fourth wall. You know, in The Office, they never really talk about the camera. Almost ever, to be honest. I mean, only until like the final season do we see, you know, Jim and Pam and all these other characters that are kind of secondary, kind of interact with the cameras, but mostly Jim and Pam, and having that dialogue with the cameramen and, you know, that sort of thing. Listen, I get it. I get that you're trying to break the fourth wall sometimes, and that's fine. Jim did it really well. He used to just look at the camera, and that was kind of like his fourth wall break with the audience. But I feel like that was enough. You don't have to force fourth wall breaks. When you see Esmeralda in the first episode, she just wants to be an attention hog with the camera. No, follow me. Do this. Let's do this. Show me this. It kind of, I get it that they already know that it's a documentary, but I want it to feel like The Office, where the talking head was just enough to allow us to just have that. And just have everything just play out. Let it play out on the show. I want the show to just allow your characters to do their thing without thinking about the cameras. Like, forget the cameras. Only think about the cameras if you're there doing the talking head. Otherwise, forget the camera. And speaking of things that need to change as well, I think the pacing needs to change as well. The pacing of the show is great. It picks up and it's very fast, but sometimes it's a little too fast to the point where you start off the show with sort of like a broken-esque paper, and, you know, you have Ned there to come and fix things up, and then by the end of the show they're already winning an award. It's really kind of jarring to just jump from one thing to the other, you know, starting off with this paper, and then, oh, they're already winning awards. Like, whoa, hold your horses here. An award type thing is something that you do on the second season or the third season, not the first season. You know, this isn't a Dundee's situation. A Dundee is not really a big deal because you can just pop that in there and it'll just be an addition to the story, not something that is pivotal to the development of your characters. And in this case, when an award happens like this, it is pivotal to your characters. A Dundee was never pivotal to the characters. It was just a silly thing that Michael Scott did to encourage his, you know, his things. This is a pivotal moment for a character. And for them to have it be the final episode of the season, it's kind of weird and jarring in a way. Now, I feel like one of the strengths and weaknesses of this show, and I feel like it's both, it's not one or the other, it's both, is that this show happens to be a show that has more heart than comedy. It is more emotional and less comedic. And I feel like that's great. You can have those emotional moments, those emotional beats, but I feel like the comedy needs to come first. I feel like you have to build more comedy than you need to build the heart of the show. The heart of the show you're going to build as it grows and progresses. That's fine. The Office grew its heart little by little. There was little moments here and there that you got attracted to a character actually became more interesting. You started to fall in love with another character, and then with another character, and then so on and so forth until you started to build this sort of like cohesive family-esque, dynamic that you just want to come back to over and over again. So I feel like in order to do that, this show needs to follow from the playbook of The Office and lean more towards the comedy and leave the heart to the side just a tad bit. Mind you, keep the comedy at a high and just sprinkle little moments of heart here and there. That's fine. That's fine. Honestly, like, the impactful moments of The Office are the moments with heart. And the comedy just helps push that forward. Because as long as you're laughing at what they are doing, ultimately that laughter starts to become kind of a connective tissue to who you are and to who the character is. So now you're creating this connecting thing between you and the character that ultimately could, strengthen the series. So like I said, build the comedy first and then grow its heart little by little. I feel like the show is more heart than comedy. I feel like they need to flip the script and make it more comedy than heart, and then over time have that become something more. And don't get me wrong, the moments with heart and comedy typically are the ones that stood out. I feel like the ones that struck the best balance are moments that stood with me for a while. And I feel like those are the best scenes of the show. You have Ned biking to work and having to use the bathroom. That's a funny scene. That was great. I think that was a great little, intro to the episode. And then you have, Ned in the car with the spider. That was hilarious. That was probably one of the funniest scenes of the entire season. Great. I feel like there needs to be more of that. But I feel like that was one of the best scenes of the season. And then obviously at the very end where, Ned and Mare kiss, which is, everybody saw it coming. Everybody knew that was going to become that dynamic. So it's no surprise. But I feel like, again, that could have been something that you would have explored more of in a second season, not in a first season. It feels like it went by a little fast. So then again, those are the moments that actually stood out to me as a whole, because not only did they have heart, but they also had a lot of laughter as well. And now you might be asking yourself, what were the best episodes of the season? Or do you have a favorite episode, or do you have this? That's probably what you are asking to me personally and what you've been wanting to hear. But I feel like the best episodes this season so far are episode 5 and episode 10. And I feel like I'm not the only one who's saying it. You can go up on Reddit and actually see people talking about it as well. But yeah, those are the two strongest episodes because they follow the Office formula. I see episode 5 and I see episode 10, and I'm seeing two episodes that are so ingrained in, true Office isms, following an Office formula, something that people are familiar with. And I feel like that's the direction that they need to take it. So I feel like that would be my go-to thing, is that if they're going to build on what they did on season 1 in season 2, let's hope that they follow the formulas of episodes 5 and episodes 10, that they can grow those seasons from there. And honestly, that would be my biggest tip. So just putting it in simple words, I want season 2 to have more comedy. I want season 2 to follow that original Office formula so that it can grow and become a very successful show. I want it to be something that grows on this foundation that it has already built. And obviously, I want to see cameos by characters that we know and love of The Office. I would love to see, maybe Jim and Pam walk into this, Toledo Truth Teller to talk about Athlete. I want to see, Jim and Pam going out to dinner with Oscar, or I want to see Michael Scott come in for an interview or to, run a certain sector. I want to see, maybe Toby show up for something. I want to see more Office characters pop up here. It doesn't have to be for 2-3 episodes, but maybe an episode here, an episode there, who knows? But I would love to see more cameos from characters that we know and love of The Office in this show. And the most important thing is for them not to play it safe. I do not want them to play this entire show the safe way. Do the weird thing. Talk the weird thing. Say every weird thing and put it out into this show, because I feel like that would be the true spirit of The Office. The Office never played it safe, so I don't see why they would play this show safe. Don't play it by little rules or restrictions or that. Go all in. And I'm telling you, this show has potential to be possibly my second favorite show of all time, simply due to the fact that it's in the same universe as the one that I love so much. And in keeping with the tradition of my channel, I want to hear from you. What did you think of the paper? Did you enjoy the paper? Did you watch the paper? Are you going to watch the paper? Do you think that it stacks up against The Office? Do you think it's better than The Office? Do you think that it's worse than The Office? I want to hear from you because I want to have this discussion with you for a show that I know for a fact is possibly going to be one of my favorite shows of all time if they do season 2 right. And I want to hear that from you down below in the comments. So write them down in the comments below. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos go live on this channel. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.
Scrolling through YouTube, same old routine, then bam, movie savant, what a scene. Trivia bombshells dropping knowledge like rain. Forget the dishes, gotta watch it again. Movie buffs unite, savants to place. Subscribe and hit the bell, don't leave a trace. Next level knowledge keeps you in the loop. Savants got the scoop, ain't nothing to recoup.